Hey, welcome back to the vacation home, friend. Yeah, and what better way to celebrate National Textile Day, right? No, Chester, I don't mean by shutting down China's entire textile industry. I just mean by telling a scary story, that's all. Geez, where do you get these crazy ideas? Anyway, come on in. Better not keep Clarence waiting. I think the ghostly prick is just tickled pink about being a reoccurring character now. Wish he had some more interesting lines, though. Ooh, it's the Crimson Hour here at the Weekend Abode, so we better get started. 'Cause when that last lick of light fades away, it's gonna be you, me, and whatever's waiting in these walls for the lights to go out. Our tale tonight is brought to you by author LP Hernandez. This one comes courtesy of Velox Books and can be found in his excellent book, Dreadful. Be sure to check out veloxbooks.com to find him and all your other favorite authors for your next read. In this story, our protagonist works the night shift at a supermarket bakery, which has him isolated from normal human interactions. Years go by, and now he's more detached than ever. But what can happen to a man when he's lost all connection to reality? Well, let's find out. Without further delay, from author LP Hernandez, Gehenna. In a word, Andy felt detached. In the beginning, it was a blessing. Working the night shift eliminated his need to interact with friends and family. His mother stopped calling to tell him about his abuela's perpetually deteriorating condition. Her descriptions were often graphic and always ended with heavy, stuttering sobs. As far as Andy was concerned, his abuela was a cruel and vile woman when in good health, and the thought of her withering body to him was like a pebble tossed into the ocean. His friends stopped inviting him out to parties. That was okay, one less place to feel awkward. Social obligations dried like grapes left on the vine until none were left. The solitude was a gift, allowing time for introspection and quiet contemplation. The job, however, was supposed to be temporary. Months piled on top of each other until they became a year, then 2. By the 3rd year, Andy was detached. Solitude dissolved into isolation. He returned from work and sat in his living room, stirring the cool, soggy chunks of mystery meat within his TV dinner. He'd stare at the television, the wall, or nothing in particular with dewy red-rimmed eyes. Food didn't even taste like food. It tasted like a color, gray. There was nothing to distinguish a given day from the one that preceded it. Andy was a walking husk, an animated ghost roaming the boxy labyrinth of his apartment. The walls bare save for the shit paint patching job masking the nail holes of prior tenants. Andy belonged to the other world, the one of insomniac automatons that kept the gears grinding while most everyone else slept. It was the moth that changed everything. His nocturnal brother, who'd become lost on his way to the beacon of the bedside lamp and slipped. Andy navigated his room, shuffling items here and there as he prepared to sleep. He paid little attention to the previous night's edition of The Late Show on the television. The sound of muted laughter was enough to inspire some response. Arched eyebrows or a smile a psychiatrist might offer a pedophile. Nothing registered. Had Mr. Colbert placed a gun on his temple and painted his studio with gore and gray matter, Andy would not have responded any differently. He brushed his teeth in the dark and avoided his reflection while doing so. Andy had unintentionally grown a beard over the course of a few months leading up to that night. In quick glimpses, he found his appearance gaunt, though the scale claimed his weight had not fluctuated more than a few pounds since receiving his driver's license at 16. More than gaunt, he looked drained, not necessarily of fat or muscle, but of the persistence that ping-ponged him off of life's old disappointments. Shaving reminded him of everything he had never become, so he stopped. Andy glanced at the television to find Stephen Colbert frozen in midair. It appeared the host had been prancing toward his guest in the interview segment of the show when the broadcast faltered. Wearing only flannel pajama bottoms, Andy stalked around his bedroom in search of the remote. He was not wholly concerned with Mr. Colbert or his guest, but the idea of not knowing where the remote was needled him in a very specific way. It was a strange fixation carried over from his childhood. Had the moth not been flying at eye level, Andy might not have noticed it. The frayed edge of one shell-colored wing grazed Andy's cheek as he walked past. His heart very nearly lodged in his throat, and the excited yelps he emitted didn't resemble any modern language, but seemed a collection of unrelated syllables. His fingertips sought the tingling flesh of his cheek while he searched for the source of the surprise. He saw the moth, paused in mid-flight a few feet shy of the lamp. Its wings were blurred along their edges as if it was a photograph of a moth instead of the actual insect. He examined it from inches away, looking for a string or a thread to explain its defiance of gravity. "What?" he whispered, and even in that softly spoken word his voice managed to crack. He glanced at the television, the two-dimensional form of Stephen Colbert replicating the moth's violation of physics. Ideas blossomed and expired in an instant, and none took root. He raised a quivering hand and brought it near the moth, licking his lips, his whole body like a bowstring drawn to its limit. His trembling index finger grazed the wing, and he recoiled at once. Something passed between him and the moth, a jolt not unlike the shock of discharged static electricity. Stephen Colbert landed to applause like rainfall on a metal roof, nearly inaudible, and the moth fluttered the remaining feet to the lampshade. Its shadowed form loomed large on the ceiling. The supermarket sacrificed quality and customer satisfaction to eliminate 3 positions within its bakery, choosing frozen dough over its popular handmade bread. The crew of overnight bakers was whittled from 4 down to just 1, Andy, who tended the donut fryer. The bakery manager attempted to switch to frozen donuts, which would have eliminated Andy's position, but the customer uproar over the first pitiful batch resulted in a raise for Andy, as well as guaranteed hours. He worked alone, ears plugged with audiobooks, and clocked out as the day shift arrived. His co-workers knew him by his name on the schedule, his initials next to a timestamp on the label of dough in the cooler, but few could say they knew him. He left early when possible, sunglasses shielding sore eyes even in the darkness of the parking lot. Andy went days without speaking to anyone, and was often shocked at the sound of his own voice on the occasions a casual conversation couldn't be avoided. His voice had the timid quality of an immigrant attempting to communicate in his non-native tongue, each word a trial. He was detached, hovering on the fringes of society, exhausted and alone. Andy encountered little traffic on the drive from the supermarket to his apartment. On the humid August morning following the night of the moth, Andy drove the familiar route beneath the milky orange glow of street lamps, windshield fogging despite his best attempts to clear it. The radio was low, tuned to a crackling AM station alternating between college football chatter and classical music. Andy's aching eyes squinted and sweat traced the crest of his brow as he cursed the air conditioning, which was only cool when he didn't think about it. His headlights washed over a homeless man attempting his best impression of a statue behind the shopping cart overflowing with bulging garbage bags. Andy slowed and merged into the left lane. He rolled down the window. "Sir," he said, the first word he had spoken to another soul in 2 days. "Sir?" as a question. Andy held out money, yet his audience of one was unimpressed. The man was trapped in a swath of darkness between the circular borders of light drizzled by the lamppost overhead. He was anonymous in everything but gender, which was revealed by shaggy tufts of white hair between the first and second knuckles. Andy released the money, and it fell on unseen waves like a feather. "Oh well," he whispered and turned his gaze to the road. The car did not respond to his initial demand to accelerate. As he became aware of that unusual circumstance, the pedal eventually being pressed to the floorboard with no response, he also recognized a hum from within his vehicle. The hum was musical and did not waver in pitch, volume, or consistency. It came from the speakers, a solitary trumpet note, singing in the stillness of the approaching dawn. Andy vacated the vehicle at once, recalling the moths suspended in flight. The light above revealed a collection of moths similarly afflicted, within perpetual reach of their ultimate goal, yet growing no closer. The world around was a snapshot, a perfect unwavering offering of a sliver of time. "Hey!" he shouted. The word expired as it passed his lips and sounded as though it was screamed into a pillow. His attention returned to the man in the shadows. This was not an ode to statues, but a living one, possibly living. Andy examined him from all sides, but the darkness was thorough. He brought his face to within an inch of the man, detected no odor, and saw not a flutter, not even a hint of movement. Proximity did not affect the darkness, as only the suggestion of contours was tenable. Had the incident with the moth lasted as long? Andy backed away, feeling as if he was breathing the last of the oxygen left in the frozen world. His hand searched his throat and lingered near his sternum. His heart responded to the surge of adrenaline. A chorus of monkey-fisted hailstones threatening to shatter the skeletal bonds from within. What if there was no return? Movement from the opposite side of the street. It appeared injured, preambulating on two legs in a slow, deliberate manner, its spindly arms flailing awkwardly as if perpetually off balance. Andy thought nothing but merely watched. The creature's head was the approximate length of its body, yet its girth was impossible. It moved from shadow to light as it crossed the street, stopping at the curb, which came up to its knees. The head remained on the asphalt, a glistening streak painting the road leading up to it. Though at a distance of 50 feet or so, Andy recognized human-like features he had never before seen on a person. Fleshy, pulsing caverns occupied the space beneath its brow, and a line running from ear to ear opened at regular intervals to reveal an array of dry, grinding teeth. In some ways, the face resembled a child's drawing, without symmetry and possessing merely the rudimentary essence of standard anatomy. It caressed the concrete curb with its thin, bulb-tipped fingers while its head remained affixed to the street. Its neck was broken, but it did not appear stout enough to have supported the head had it not been. The fact that movement was possible despite the obvious break in the neck was but one confusing aspect of an already unbelievable scene. Andy screamed. A black creature, long and thick like a bloated snake, coiled its slick hot form around Andy's ankle. Its entire body was covered in stiff ebony hairs that could well have been narrow spikes. The head was merely a circular gash, which continually opened and closed with a wet sucking sound. Andy kicked his leg out and felt the spikes dig into his skin. Teeth gripped the meat of Andy's calf, and the creature writhed as if trying to burrow into the tissue. Numbness crept up Andy's leg, and it began to buckle at the knee. The bobble-headed animal collapsed in the street and bleated like a wayward calf. Almost as if on cue, a chorus of calls erupted nearby. Was the initial cry, followed by a dozen or so echoes of the same sound. The numbness touched the base of Andy's spine and his vision clouded, a brown, gauzy haze separating him from whatever reality he occupied. He pitched forward and caught himself on instinct. The cries of Butte were like sirens in his head, his thoughts like a dozen tadpoles in a snow globe. As his internal vision darkened, a wall of black rising before him, he felt hands crawl across his body. The determination of their grasp spoke of desperation. He heard honking, although distant, more akin to a memory.
"Hey, mister."
A voice called from a world away. As his mind wrestled with the voice, the sustained note released, and a crescendo of strings followed. The feeling returned to his leg, and his vision began to regain its former clarity. His body was unmolested, the pain and tingling absent from his leg. He realized he was standing in the street, one foot on either side of the dividing yellow hash marks. A car swerved around them.
"Mister,"
the voice said again. Andy flinched upon seeing the homeless man still utilizing the shopping cart as a walker. He drifted into the crepuscular light, broken by pulsing wings of greedy moths.
"Hey, mister, you okay?"
Andy looked at his still shaking leg and saw evidence of nothing unusual.
I think so."
He returned to his car on mechanically clumsy legs and sat behind the steering wheel for a full minute. The homeless man lingered nearby, chewing his gums and scanning the grass for aluminum cans.
"I handed you some money, $20, a second ago. I think it's on the sidewalk,"
Andy said. He jerked the car door shut and pressed the gas pedal. The car lurched. Andy offered an apologetic wave to the homeless man without looking at him. He drove home on autopilot, accompanied by the fading music of a symphony. Andy was thankful that his work week was over. He hoped 2 days of rest might clear his head, or at least allow him time to seek out an explanation. Sleep came with great reluctance, and brought with it nightmares.
Hi, this is Gene. If you can't reach me, I'm playing the slots. Wish me luck.
Andy cleared his throat.
"Hi, Mom. It's Andy. I was just calling to see how you were doing. Tell Pops I said hi. Call me back."
Andy hesitated before adding,
"Soon."
Andy placed the phone on the receiver and toggled the mouse, bringing the computer monitor back to life. The room was filled with natural light for the first time in weeks. Despite the glare it created on the screen that held Andy's attention, it was comforting. Metallica played in the background loud enough to obscure any sounds beyond his walls. Andy woke with the honest intention of discovering the source of his experience in the library across town. It's what they always did in the movies. But the idea of driving his car and encountering another land eel, or whatever it was, robbed his will to do anything more than open the blinds and research from the comfort of his computer chair. He sipped an energy drink and began to read. Through perusing conspiracy sites and message boards, Andy managed to find a couple of topics concerning time slips. Generally, these involved accounts of encountering people or things from the wrong era. In one instance, a contributor claimed to have photographed a soldier from the American Revolution wandering around a field near his home. The soldier made eye contact with the writer and brandished his weapon in fear. With a flash, the picture was taken and the soldier disappeared in the same instant. The image was blurry, a haggard man half transparent, arm raised, though the weapon was not captured. Without the story, it was nothing, just an interesting story written by an anonymous author. Andy dismissed the phenomenon, or possible fabrication, and continued scrolling. A car stopped at a red light pulled his attention to the window. He sucked in air, lungs filled to aching. Beyond the car was a church, one he did not recognize, though he looked out that window every day. He willed the light to turn green or the car to give some indication that it wasn't frozen. How long did that light take? Andy rose from his seat in preparation. The light flashed green and the car sped away. Air seeped through his gritted teeth and he sat down. There was no church either. It was a wait-in-your-car oil change place. Had been for as long as he remembered. Andy opened a thread titled My Experience. He began to read, at first annoyed by the lack of punctuation, and then intrigued by the content.
Worked the midnight shift as a security guard because I couldn't find a job after college, and sometimes I didn't see another soul for weeks. I don't know how it got to be this way. I just drifted away from people and those things you use to define a person. And I realize I'm rambling now, but I swear there were times when I literally felt like I no longer existed.
Andy's face neared the monitor, nose grazing fine particles of dust. He scanned the text, and his heart beat faster.
I guess I slipped is the best way to describe it. I don't understand physics or any science beyond what I learned in school, but I can feel it. I can feel at the fringes of our reality, another reality bleeding through. And maybe my detachment from our reality made me sensitive to it, I don't know. The other reality is terrible. It's evil. It's a vision of hell. The things I saw didn't make sense. The sky was green like bile, and the animals. They weren't animals, they were monsters. Demons. The anatomy was wrong, it just defied logic. What's terrifying is I can't tell the difference anymore. Our worlds kind of blend together. Sometimes I sit at my post and catch a whiff of the other world. I'll see those horrible things stalking around the neighborhood, passing through houses as if they didn't exist. Sometimes I'm in the other world and I see a car drive by, oblivious. I think they watch me sleep. I have to go, but we'll write more if I can.
Andy scrolled and found nothing. A few replies, mostly insults. The thread was the author's only entry on that particular site. Andy reclined, arms hanging lifeless at his side. In the space between songs, his breathing was loud and ragged. Maybe the author experienced the same phenomenon as Andy. Maybe it was completely different, unrelated. Regardless, he either did not survive to submit an update, or had not bothered to return to it for some other reason.
Beep.
Andy bolted upright, brandishing the mouse as if it was a grenade. A second, 2 seconds passed, and the next song began. The calls came again, echoing inside Andy's mind, and he recognized at once that he had imagined them. The demarcation between his reality and what hovered near its edges grew fuzzy. The walls were too close together and the ceiling too low. Dueling urges to cower inside his closet or abandon the mausoleum of his apartment sent him pacing. He approached the front door with his arm outstretched, fingers quaking. His eyes, raw and jaundiced in appearance, glanced about the room as if each shadow had teeth. The adrenaline spike drove stomach acid up the back of his throat. He grabbed the doorknob for support, turned it, and stumbled out of the living room onto the cement walkway leading to his apartment. Andy squirmed in the grass like a fish in a dwindling puddle. To a passerby, he would have appeared a drunkard who abandoned his attempt to make it home. He turned on his side, a blue haze dominating the center of his vision. "Control your breathing." He braced himself with an elbow and sat, brain like a bowl of cold soup. With grunts and groans, the soup sloshing around his skull, he stood and began to walk. Andy sought refuge within the pages of a book. The air conditioning was like cool silk on his hot skin. He thumbed through a hefty paperback about cryptozoology, analyzed the various grainy pictures purported to be one beast of legend or another. He said. There were a few creatures with which he was familiar, including the orangutan, or short man of Sumatra. Ape men appeared to be a phenomenon consistent across many cultures, and Andy couldn't help but consider the possibility of a kinship to his own dilemma. He saw her in his peripheral vision, taller than himself, with a disposable cup of coffee perched near her shoulder. She glanced at her watch and sighed before scanning the titles of paperbacks, probably on her lunch break, although he was not sure if it was lunch, only that it was bright outside. Clearing his throat, Andy turned his body in what he hoped appeared to be a natural fashion and chanced a more direct observation. She was quite beautiful, and the fact that she was perusing the conspiracy and occult books served to deepen the immediate attraction. More than that, it rooted him to his reality, touching that very human part of him that longed for connection. She sidestepped at a leisurely pace, closing the distance between herself and Andy. A breeze of sweet citrus and honey enveloped him. Andy recalled a crush from middle school and smiled. She hummed, cool green eyes searching the titles. When she collided with Andy, her demeanor changed from quiet contemplation to pure terror in an instant. She fell backwards onto the carpeted floor and landed awkwardly, legs pointing in opposite directions, coffee cup resting in a spreading puddle. Her petal-pink lips trembled. Andy stuttered. In her eyes, he discovered the inspiration for fear. There was nothing particularly frightening about his appearance. She just hadn't seen him at all. She had seen open space and meant to occupy it. Andy dropped his book, held out a hand as if offering assistance, and recalled it. She shielded her face from him, and he hurried away, practically sprinting as he neared the double doors leading out of the bookstore. The world beyond the doors was not one Andy recognized. The sky was sea green and populated with tattered clouds of a similar color, though a slightly lighter hue. The air tasted different, acrid. It reminded him of the sour phosphorus scent of the paper mill he passed on the route to school as a child. Behind him was not the bookstore, but an expanse of yellow earth interrupted here and there by tufts of grass. He saw a man there, crouched with his back to Andy. "Hey!" Andy jogged toward the figure and felt a surge of relief knowing he was not alone. "Hey!" Andy screamed, and heard distant replies of "Be-yoop." He stood over the man, panting, gray strands of saliva dangling from the corners of his mouth. "Hey, what are you—" Andy stopped. The man wore a black suit long out of fashion, though its era was not obvious. The clothes were dusty and tinted yellow because of it. A ribbon bow tie fluttered limply in the feeble wind. He looked up at Andy and smiled. The lone incisor, the color of aged paper, commanded Andy's attention for a moment. "My God," Andy whispered. The man's eyes were small, far too small for his head. They were practically marbles. His face was terrible. The skin was ruddy and blotched, interrupted here and there by random patches of white hair. A spiderweb of capillaries dominated either cheek, and a thin film of black fuzz covered his constantly darting tongue. He smelled like the aftermath of battle, of rot, of gunpowder. The old man held a collection of animals in his hands, hairless pink things with wrinkled skin. He held them up for Andy to see. They shared his face. Each of the 6 rat-sized animals had the old man's face. The man placed the animals on the yellow dirt and retrieved a single specimen. He held it by the nape of the neck with maternal delicacy.
"Some of us chose to come here,"
the man said. His voice was like the croak of a vulture. He sunk his single tooth into the animal's back. Blood gurgled from the wound and filled his mouth, purling from the corners in twin red streams. His Adam's apple danced as he swallowed.
"Gotta purge the weakens,"
he offered with a wink. Andy turned to run but stopped. There was nowhere to run. He saw the hazy silhouettes of trees, cacti, and other things he could not identify, but there was no shelter.
"Is this hell?"
The old man wiped the blood from his cracked lips and dropped the creature onto the ground.
"Heaven, if you ask me."
There was no malice or deceit in his voice.
"Why am I here?"
The rat thing with the old man's face dragged its broken and bloodied body away toward a sprout of grass, mewling softly as its life bled out into the dirt. The old man secured another writhing victim between thumb and forefinger and paused to consider the question.
"Because you weren't there anymore,"
he said, and nodded toward the approximate area from which Andy had arrived.
"But I don't want to be here. What do I do? I'm not meant to be here."
With thinly veiled annoyance, the old man squinted at Andy and blinked his minuscule eyes rapidly.
"Start walking and hope. They had a thing called radios where I come from. You could tune to a station and hear another in the background sometimes. Sometimes that other station came through so clear it sounded like the radio men were talking to each other. It's a web, you know. It's all the same place, your world and mine. You tuned out of your part of the web, and another claimed you."
Andy, startled, spun around.
"Oh, don't worry about them. Those bastards are delicious."
The old man began to stroke the yellow beard of his rodent counterpart.
But don't let them catch you sleeping."
And that was Gehenna, by author LP Hernandez. A good reminder to get out there and hobnob from time to time, y'all. During the day, preferably. That what happened to your ass, Clarence? No wonder you're so friendly now. A little about the author. LP Hernandez is an author of horror and speculative fiction. His stories have been featured in anthologies from Cemetery Dance, Dark Matter Inc., and the House Society, among others. He's a regular contributor to the No Sleep podcast and has released 2 short story collections. Hey, thanks, LP. It's been a pleasure. The Crimson Hour is a production of the Sinister Somnolence Network. All narration and audio production by yours truly. Co-produced by Geoff Sturtevant. You can follow me on Facebook for news and upcoming releases on both this show and Drew Blood's Dark Tales, my Friday night show on Chillin' Tales for Dark Nights. I hope to see you there too. But hey, while we're here, please hit all those obligatory buttons and share if you don't mind. We'd really appreciate it. The Crimson Hour is accepting submissions. If you've got a story or two you'd like to be featured on this show, send it to drewbloodhorror@gmail.com. If selected, you'll get the full treatment. Well, the Crimson Hour's over, and you know what that means. Things are about to get pretty dark around here. So thanks as always for joining me tonight, y'all. I'd like to shout out listener PB Fleming, who writes on Apple Podcasts. I've listened to Drew Blood's renditions for a few years now, and he never disappoints. He has a voice made for storytelling, and I hope that one of my short stories will one day be read by him. Truly exceptional and addicting. Well, thanks, PB, and shoot that story over to drewbloodhorror@gmail.com, and we'll see what we can do for you. So remember, if you'd be so kind as to add a review to Apple Podcasts too, I'll make sure to shout it out on the show. And if you're here on YouTube, feel free to hit the like button and say hi below. I do read all the comments. And with that, safe travels, friend. I'll see you all next time at the Crimson Hour. Good night, friends.